SMU joins the ACC officially in less than 2 months. Obviously, an upgrade for them, but what are the thoughts around that right now due to the uncertainty of the conference for SMU and SMU's fans?
Look, I think they're excited. This is not viewed as some sort of, you know, bad situation by SMU fans. The lifeboat is the ACC, whether there's unrest in it or not. And the AAC is, as you can see now, even more watered down. And, that's just not the place to be when you're trying to be one of the top programs in the country athletically. And, by doing that, you need to be in this top 60 ish. That is the entire Power Four. And SMU, whether you want to say paid their way or whatever into the league, there's not many programs that aren't considered a blue blood of college football that are as insistent on investing in football and other sports as well as SMU is. I mean, they have spent almost $500 million on facilities in the last decade alone, not to mention the NIL and coaches' salaries going up and all of that. This is a university that, look, they went through the death penalty. They realized that it was a bad move to go full blown, let's say, like Swanee or Vanderbilt or Rice, and really value the academics to the fullest extent that they did. And they realized it a little bit after TCU did. And so now it's finally built to that moment of they've made it to the ACC despite all of these things throughout the years since the death penalty standing in their way, in quite honestly, in their own making, their own doing, but they have invested. And so they're very happy to be in the ACC, regardless of the unrest or not, and regardless of giving up TV money or not.
If FSU and Clemson leave, is there which it seems like they will, and who knows what will happen with North Carolina and potentially others, Miami, NC State, is there a concern that the ACC could end up maybe not as low as the AAC would be, but is there almost like a contingency idea or plan if that is to happen?
Yeah, I don't know about a contingency plan or anything like that, but the league, who knows when that shift happens and if it fully goes through. I mean, you look at revenue sharing and you look at all the different changes that are about to happen. How will they impact some of these leagues and some of these schools, and how they have to plan is a real conversation to be had. And so I do think it's a ever changing direction of athletics. I think now that SMU is in this club, so to speak, I don't think there's as much concern. That's why they continue to invest. That's why they fired their basketball coach and went with Andy Enfield, who's been to multiple NCAA tournaments at a high major. That's why they continue to build football facilities, $120 million end zone. They want to show that whenever there is a final decision on what college athletics looks like, whether it is a top 60, top 75 type of mega league, which just ends up being, kind of back to where we were, I feel like a decade and a half ago, that they want to be in it because they spend, because they have that commitment to doing it the right way, rather than some of these programs that, around the country in certain leagues are, for better or for worse, called poverty programs, taking on millions and millions of dollars of debt just to make it seem like they're committed to doing it the right way. I mean, SMU doesn't take on debt. They pay their bills very quickly, I'll add. And so I think as they've slowly tried to churn the on-field results like we saw in football this fall into real tangible success, they've been investing so that there's never a question of where they stand in the future of college athletics. Like an SMU, you look at all the schools that have been jumping up into the into the Power Five ranks. SMU is the only one with a national championship, and they've got multiple. So there's a college football world that deserves SMU after everything they've been through, and it's not as much right now because they've had some various levels of on-field success lately, because they're going to spend and they're going to do it the right way rather than be chintzy and just try to get by on them already being there like some other colleges do.
Being able to get in at a very reduced rate and not at a full share and just not taking the same payouts that others are, to just the average or casual fan out there, does that? I mean, I don't want to say hurt SMU, but like, do they just have enough money to where that doesn't even matter to them?
So this is the funny thing that people say, "Oh, you paid your way in, or you going for nothing." No, this is a net positive for SMU money wise, just by being in the league.
Yeah.
Season ticket
The
sales are up.
AAC doesn't pay anything anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like
and
$4
the
million. Yeah, it's like $7 million a year, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's not. Yeah, the AAC doesn't pay that much to begin with, and then you get into the Power Five or the Power Four in the ACC, even at a reduced rate, your sponsorships get more valuable. You've set
Florida
season
State comes to
ticket.
town. Yeah.
Florida State comes to town, fills your stadium. I mean, it is donations. They raised $100 million in a week. This is not. It's not the same thing as giving up money. They're coming out on the positive end of this just from donations and season tickets and sponsorships and all the different things that they sell for their program, as well as the ancillary revenue that they bring in from the media deal on top of that. So they're not giving up money; they're just getting it from different sources now. And when their money does kick in at some point, if a Florida State does get out in the somewhat near future, then they get a full share, and now they're really cooking with gas. So it was a net win for SMU, no matter how you slice it.
So when SMU and Cal and Stanford were added, there's a lot of different theories and thoughts on why the ACC added, when they added. There's been talk about, they did it for this agreement, that agreement, in case teams left, they'd stay above a certain threshold. Fans of some of the power teams in the conference obviously weren't fans of adding other programs. I don't know that there was as much disdain for SMU because they kind of feel like they should be in a Power Five. I think it had a lot to do with Cal and Stanford and West Coast teams being in the Atlantic Coast Conference. SMU kind of I think fits a little bit better than the other two. But but I think SMU kind of got lumped into some of that. Do SMU fans like hold any kind of angst against like Florida State's fan base, Clemson's fan base, or has a lot of that died down that you've seen?
No, I mean there's some. I think trying to think of the right way to put it, but it's not petty. But Florida State still voted against SMU. Clemson still voted against SMU, and SMU fans are like, look, why are we a concern? I mean, I get why you're. Well, I mean, they're foregoing the revenue that's going to get given to you, so you are getting a little bit more, and you get to go play a game now. Every few years, at least in Dallas, where you recruit. Both schools recruit there. It just seemed a little petty. So that was the only thing, but I get it, and I think SMU fans get it. They're very, for the most part, reasonable people, and they're pretty pumped about being in the ACC. I mean, a lot of people think that once FSU and Clemson fans and just fans across the league like come see the Boulevard or come catch a game, when a basketball team comes to town from Moody, it's a fun town. It's a great school to come watch a game at. There's no bad seats in the house, and tailgating's fun, and everybody's pretty welcoming. So I think people will realize that SMU fits in the ACC a lot better than SMU fits in the Big 12 or the Pac-12 before it fell apart. SMU views itself as like a Virginia and programs like that, where they have seen more success in the basketball realm, but they're at least ready to spend and do it the right way and fit in with a lot of the academics that are in this league and things like that.
I could see myself taking a trip to Dallas. I don't know that I would go to Cal or Stanford for a game anytime soon.
Go wine tasting.
Yeah, I don't. Man, that's a lot for a in the fall with how busy we are. Pasadena, if we make it there, I'm always down for that trip. So, I know you cover the SEC just a little bit too. Do you have a prediction on where you see teams like Florida State, Clemson landing when it all kind of is said and done?
Yeah. I mean, I could see them in the SEC from the standpoint of similar to Oregon and Washington. Eventually, they didn't have a place to be anymore, and the Big Big Ten had, the right ability to be able to take them at a reduced rate. I think the SEC would take Florida State and Clemson at a reduced rate. I get the value. I get what they brought to the table on the field. I just feel like the league is sitting with the power. Florida State and Clemson want to be in the SEC or they want to be in the Big Ten. I mean, you can't go wrong in a way money wise, but I think both fit more so in the SEC, and the SEC holds the power of getting in. And so, if Florida State and Clemson want to leave the ACC, I can't imagine the SEC negotiating them in for a full share right away when it's going to be such an elevated jump. So that's a theory. That's not me sourcing it or really keeping too much of a close attention on it, because I think college football and college athletics could very well end up doing that. 60 to 75 schools that really want to be the top tier programs across the country. You ditch the NCAA, you revamp, and you come away with something that looks very different. And maybe it goes back to the regional rivalries that I enjoy a little bit more. And it's just one mega, break away from the NCAA. So I don't know if that's even the path that they end up taking, but there's a lot of different things that could, end up happening with the structure of these leagues.
Yeah, the variables are insane. And I think, I think that, yeah, I tend to lean a little more Big Ten is where I think that Florida State will end up. Clemson, I'm a little less sure on. But as far as a geographical fit, as far as a cultural fit, I mean, to me, the SEC makes so much more sense for both of those programs. I mean, they just feel like SEC programs that just happen to have been in the ACC and happen to be in a conference with a lot worse leadership, through the years than what Sankey was able to pull off. So, Billy, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work? Where can they read more on SMU?
Yeah, you can check us out at ontheponyexpress.com. You could find our articles there as well as our podcast, and you can subscribe for just $1 for 2 months using code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1.
Awesome. Thanks, man, for hanging out.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.